Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced on April 11th that Mexico will immediately send water to Texas farmers under a decades-old water sharing treaty with the United States. The 1944 treaty, which mandates water deliveries every 5 years, has recently strained relations between the two nations due to Mexico's significant shortfall, having delivered less than 30% of the required amount. With just months left in the cycle, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened tariffs or sanctions in response to the noncompliance, citing the impact on Texas agriculture. However, Sheinbaum emphasized Mexico is exploring alternatives based on water availability and reaffirmed the treaty's fairness. Despite ongoing drought conditions, which Mexican officials blame for the shortfall, Sheinbaum expressed confidence that a resolution would be reached soon and downplayed the risk of escalating tensions. The two countries are now working toward an agreement in the coming days to fulfill the treaty obligations and support U.S. farmers. Nor is it the Cascais home in this standoff in the lower was an intermediate that the Texas farmers are asking for water. So there's going to be an immediate delivery of a certain number of million cubic meters that could be provided according to the availability of water in the Rio Bravo. What has happened is that there's less water in the Rio Grande in the U.S., mainly because we have had almost 4 years of drought. So there is less water. So what they are looking for are other alternatives to be able to technically comply with the treaty. I mention this because perhaps President Trump was not aware of it. There have already been working groups, and as I mentioned in my post, even the day before yesterday, a proposal had been set out on how much water Mexico can deliver to it is a treaty that establishes that the United States delivers water through the Colorado River and Mexico delivers water through the Rio Grande in the U.S. It is a fair treaty. In fact, the United States delivers more than we do because that is how much water there is in each place. That is what is technically established in the 1944 water treaty between the United States and Mexico. Was a landmark agreement in international water management signed during World War II. It established a framework for sharing the waters of the Colorado Rio Grande and Tijuana rivers. Under the treaty, Mexico receives 1.5 million acre-feet annually from the Colorado River, while the U.S. gets 1.75 million from Mexican tributaries of the Rio Grande to over 5-year cycles. A unique feature is its flexibility through minutes. Both nations can adapt to new challenges like drought or climate change without rewriting the treaty. While tensions have risen in recent years due to severe drought and inconsistent water deliveries, the treaty remains a vital symbol of diplomacy and cooperation. As climate change continues to impact water supplies, the 1944 treaty serves as a powerful reminder. Collaboration is not just necessary, it's essential for a shared future. Notably, the 1944 treaty was shaped by decades of historical events and growing international cooperation. After the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, which ended the war between the United States and Mexico, the Rio Grande was established as a shared border, sparking ongoing disputes over water usage as agriculture and urban populations grew in the 20th century. The need for formal agreements intensified during World War II. The U.S. aimed to strengthen ties with Mexico through diplomatic cooperation, building on the 1906 Convention. The 1944 treaty established lasting rules for water distribution from the Rio Grande and Colorado River, reflecting both the practical demands and geopolitical priorities of the time. For the first time since the 1944 water sharing treaty was signed, the United States has delayed a scheduled delivery of Colorado River water to Mexico, citing the country's failure to meet its own obligations under the agreement. The treaty mandates that Mexico deliver 350,000 acre-feet of water annually from the Rio Grande, while the U.S. provides 1.5 million acre-feet from the Colorado River, according to a Newsweek report. Experts, including political science professor Stephen Mumma, say this decision breaks two long-standing norms, keeping the Rio Grande and Colorado River obligations separate and prioritizing urban water needs in times of scarcity. Critics argue that the U.S. move, reportedly influenced by pressure from Texas officials, jeopardizes binational cooperation and poses risks to cities like Tijuana, which rely heavily on these emergency water channels. To put it bluntly, Texas is trying to do something to Tijuana that it would never abide on the Rio Grande Day, or half a dozen Texas cities and other Mexican cities depend on the river for their water supply. The Trump decision is not just an insult to Mexico. It is dangerous for future binational efforts to reasonably manage the provision and use of water. What's more, it does little to advance binational cooperation for improving Mexico's water compliance on the Rio Grande and does nothing to address the underlying problem of improving the reliability of flows on the river. The recent development was a rash and unprecedented decision to attempt to link emergency Tijuana water deliveries to Mexico's treaty obligation on the Rio Grande, and it is bound to fail. Bottom line here, Mexico is currently in Article 4 compliance under the 1944 Water Treaty. But Texas is legitimate, worried that Mexico will fail to meet its treaty obligation in October 2025, and it is disgusted with the pattern of treaty compliance that makes it difficult in any given school year to plan for water availability. However, the State Department has defended the action, saying Mexico's persistent shortfalls are severely impacting U.S. agriculture, especially farmers in Texas' Rio Grande Valley. Newsweek reported this rare denial of Mexico's request for a non-treaty emergency delivery underscores rising tensions and a breakdown in trust. While Mexico has cited ongoing drought conditions as the cause of its delays, the U.S. is signaling that continued non-compliance will no longer be tolerated without consequence. The U.S. and Mexico added a controversial amendment in the 1944 Water Treaty. In November of last year, a move initially seen as a potential relief for South Texas farmers facing water shortages. 8 sources familiar with the matter told Reuters that Mexico was working to increase deliveries before the October 2025 deadline, and that will likely involve enforcing the amendment, which empowers Mexican federal officials to take extra water from its states to comply with obligations. According to 6 of the sources, the federal government is specifically eyeing Nuevo Leon, Coahuila, Chihuahua, and Tamaulipas, all major grains and livestock producers. The 6 sources said for 40 Wawa to deliver water right now is death, said Senator Mario Vasquez of Chihuahua, a member of the opposition party and a vocal campaigner on water issues. The executive director of Tijuana's Water Council, Mario Mata, said the state is considering legal action against the treaty amendment that gives the federal government greater authority to take water from the state. Raising the prospect of standoffs in 2020, Mexico's National Guard clashed with farmers at the Banquilla Dam in Tijuana over water deliveries to Texas, killing one protester. Now, following the Mexican president's announcement to release water, the amendment will most likely pave the way for the U.S. to drop its tariff threats against Mexico and for the tensions to simmer down.